So I mentioned that we harvest logs first, and before we start worrying about mining, about creating a pickaxe and collecting stone and gold and so on. And the reason for that is because in the first 3 days, there's a 0% chance to spawn a tree guard. So a tree guard is a hostile creature that there's a 2% chance of creating when you cut down a tree. So the tree that you'll be cutting will transform into this walking tree kind of monster, and it'll take swipes at you, and it'll keep following you. And it moves pretty slowly and zombie-like, but you have to deal with it. So I would recommend that you start by taking down pine trees so that you have a source of pine cones with which to pacify this tree guard. And it does need to be pacified, or else it'll just keep on following you unless you aggro that tree guard onto something else. And so actually in that way, it's worth mentioning that tree guards are useful. So if you, for instance, and I don't have the most experience in this, but you can use them to help fight bosses like deer clops. I tend to stay away from these kinds of evergreens because they don't drop pine cones. And the pine cones aren't just for pacifying tree guards. They also serve to create a forest. So in case, when you find your beefalo and you camp close to them, not too close, remember, because in the rut, when you can see the red on their backside, they'll attack, and also they're harder to kite. Whereas when they're not in the rut, they're very, very easy to kite and deal with. But anyway, so you'll have to make your base close to beefalo, and you might not have a source of trees ready for winter. Winter comes in on day 21, so we still have a long time till winter, but it's deceiving. You'll actually need to work a fair amount to get ready for that point, so you can't stop. Well, you can, but if you want to be well set up, you gotta keep going. Don't waste your time with rabbits, by the way. I should have mentioned that, but I thought it was obvious. In the beginning, I used to always subsist off rabbits, and it's a waste of time. You won't make it past day 12, and it's just they don't give you, those morsels don't give you enough food. Or it's not optimal. It's not a foolproof strategy. Okay, so you can see we've got a lot of twigs here. We've got a fair bit of wood. I would normally collect 4 or 5 stacks of wood. I collect 2 stacks of twigs. We're great for grass right now. I keep note of mushrooms when they're around because those are very useful. So now we need stones, which would be where we spawned up here around the top of the map. So we know where to go back for that, which is actually pretty lucky. We still have to find a savanna for beefalo, and we need to find a source of charcoal, because we'll need charcoal for crafting crock pots, and also for you don't need them for this purpose, but you can also craft drying racks. So drying racks they're very expensive in terms of grass, and we can see a bunch of ponds here. I'll revisit the ponds later, but the drying racks are very expensive in terms of grass, but they do help to preserve food. Oh wow, okay. I have a lot to touch on right now. The game's introducing a lot of different elements at this moment. Okay, right now, I've got 4 things on my mind. Okay, first we gotta get to some trees before nightfall. I want to light a forest fire, and then simultaneously I want to harvest trees. And then after the forest fire is burned, you don't have to worry about it going too out of control, and you can cut trees around to kind of contain the burn. But I definitely want to get some charcoal right now. And I wouldn't want to do a forest fire super... Oh, that's lucky. Let's pick that up. I wouldn't want to make a forest fire too close to where we'll be cutting wood. So, you can see there's a spear there. I'll come back to that. Sorry, too close to where we'll be camping. Because you don't want to burn a forest you might need later on. Alright, regaining my train of thought here. Oh yes, we're okay. So we were talking about crockpots and drying racks. So drying racks aren't essential, but they're great for drying your beefalo meat, which makes jerky. Great, I see another forest over here. We're getting far away from our spawn though, but this is beautiful. And we have another path. Just to expedite this process, I'm just going to make a forest fire right now, so let's go ahead. And it's just about nighttime. Let's light one right here. And I don't really care about what I'm going to lose on this side too. Let's light one right here. And let's let that go and see what we get. And let's light a fire. Hopefully it doesn't come over this direction. That would be pretty unfortunate. We got a tree guard. Are they mad? They're mad. Okay, so now we got something to deal with. So I'll discuss my strategy while I'm dealing with these tree guards. Here, let's plant some pine cones right in front and demonstrate how you deal with a tree guard. So I said to pacify it, you need pine cones. You have to plant it within a certain radius of the tree guard. There we go, and we just turned it back into a tree. Now I can't actually chop this now, because if I do, it'll bring the tree guard back. We have to talk about our charcoal needs. So once again, we have two items that are very important to craft with charcoal. One is drying racks, the other is crockpots. So in the base version of the game, crockpots are the most important, because food that is produced in a crockpot will not spoil, or will spoil extremely slowly. Whereas in this version of the game, that's not the case. Let's see. Wow, we spawned a few of these tree guards. Okay, this will be useful for a boss battle. And they don't seem to mind us collecting charcoal here, so let's do that. So in the base version of the game, you can see how crockpots are very, very important because they won't let your food spoil. For those of you who haven't heard of what a crockpot is, it's basically a craftable item that requires an alchemy engine in order to craft. So you have to be in the presence of that alchemy engine. And after you craft it, it creates a structure on the ground that's an input-output system for food. So you input food, and depending on the combination of food you input into the 4 input slots, it will produce an output. Now that output is semi-random, so it does depend on the input, but it is random. What I use a crockpot for in the winter, the tree's swaying here. What I use it for the winter is for meaty stew. So that requires, one recipe for that is 4 meat. You can alternatively use 3 meat and 1 mushroom, and you'll get basically a meal, a crafted food item that will totally refill your hunger meter. So that's a very important one. Another very important one is fish sticks, which is great for healing up, for rehealing your health. Okay, so that's the importance of crockpots. So in the base version of the game, I would make as many crockpots as you can before winter, because they will just keep that food. It'll keep it cooked, and the meal will not spoil. It'll sit there forever until you use it. In Reign of Giants, however, I would make like 4, and I would try and get a refrigerator so that you can preserve that food. So if you want to be sure that you can replenish a lot of health, make a bunch of fish sticks and put them in the freezer. Or sorry, the ice box is the item. So you can see we've got a fair bit of charcoal here, so let's just pick up. We don't need the most charcoal. We don't even need to take everything that we've gotten here, but just as a proof of concept, if I was actually playing the game for real, I would have probably 2 stacks of charcoal in this situation, at least 1 stack of charcoal. And remember, our inventory is going to be totally filled up before we play. So let's go with 1 stack. Alright, now let's get some gold and some rocks. I'm going to drop our axe, because we don't need it right now. So let's get some of this. So if I find like a boulder or something, I'm just going to leave the niter. So I'm going to pick up rocks, I'm going to pick up gold and flint until we have a full thing of flint, like a full stack of flint. But here, I'm not going to pick up the niter that this drops. Let's leave that on the ground, just pick up the rocks and flint. And now it's raining. So raining is going to reduce our sanity. I don't want to do wood cutting here because there's so many tree guards in this area. But you could reduce the increase of that, increasing wetness here, going underneath the tree. So you could actually just be more efficient by chopping down the trees and going one by one. Alright, so we should now keep looking for beefalo and or go for some rocks, do some mining. And so I think we should actually go do some mining first. I need to eat soon. Otherwise, I anticipate I'll start. I can't actually see my hunger meter here, but I can see when it just fills up. Because of the something about the recording makes it so that I can't see it. So let's just fill up on some food here. Oh, good. Oh man, I must have been really low. Okay, there we go. I'm pretty full up here, and I don't think these will spoil. Here's. So we can see we have a source of ponds over here, so that we'll have to keep that in our, take a mental note of that when it comes to establishing our base location. So we don't want to be moving too far in order to get our fish for fish sticks. Alright, 25 minutes. Expect a visit from the hounds on day 7. So it would be nice to have a log suit ready for that. Also have a spear ready to go. And of course, if you come across a touchstone, absolutely take advantage of that. So we see one right over here. Excellent. Alright, so now we have a backup. Not that I really needed it. I have another save that's further along in the game, so I can probably make a follow-up video with that save after I've just demonstrated a few things. So I'm going to actually pause the video, and or I'm going to come back when I have found the savannah.